Hi, welcome to Wetpixel Live. My name is Adam Hanlon. I'm the editor of Wetpixel, and we'd like to thank CCAM for sponsoring this episode. CCAM produce a range of housing strobes and camera accessories, all beautiful stuff. Please head on over and have a look on ccam.com to check out what they do. I'd like to introduce our regular contributor, Alex Mustard. Hi, Alex.
Hey, Adam. Nice to see you.
Looking very blue and red today. It's,
yeah. Orange, I think my T-shirt is. I don't know how it comes through on the camera.
Oh, it looks quite red from here, in a way. Obviously, we've come to the end of another month, end of February, or beyond the end of February now. And as we discussed earlier, we are featuring the 5 images that get in Facebook's algorithm the greatest whatever on the Facebook page, and the algorithm seems to be based around a combination of engagement, so that's likes, comments, so on and so forth, as well as reach, so how many people have seen it. So, but very much just to stress, we've just literally gone in and used the analytics that Facebook provides on the Facebook group to select these images. That's where it's come from. And obviously all the usual stories about social media, they're all true. It's not simply, it would be untrue to say that these are necessarily the best images on on the Wetpixel Facebook group this month, but they're arguably the most talked about.
I was pleased to see Facebook allowed some Australian images in.
yeah, that's right. We seem to be geographically relocated now by Facebook. So
okay,
it's very kind of them to do that.
So what's the name of the group again? Just for
it's Wetpixel Facebook group.
Okay,
and it's literally
designed for sharing pictures.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it has a wonderful selection of. I mean, it's very active. It has 37,000 members. There's a great deal of posts. It's designed, or the way I see it, is it's very much a gallery showcasing underwater imagery. So we don't really let people. We ask people, should I say, not to post technical queries or equipment queries or for sale ads or all the other stuff that goes on. The Wetpixel forums is the right place to do that. But this is a really good place to share imagery. And I have to say, it's one of the highlights of my morning. I go on every morning and look at the images, and I always find something that inspires me or something interests me as I'm going through. So it's great, and it's great that people are willing to share these images, particularly at the moment when we're not being underwater as much as we might like. Anyway, we've got the 5 images that Facebook has. Facebook's algorithm has generated as being the most interesting images from Facebook's algorithm, and the first one is this image of a dolphin by Sam Nutman. Have you got that there in front of you, Alex?
Yeah, I have. It looks like a spinner from the Red Sea to me from the background. It looks like a very Red Sea background, and it looks like a spinner dolphin. So
Sam's called it Leaf Games, which is obviously the dolphins playing.
It's done well to find a leaf in the Red Sea.
Yeah, I'm not. She doesn't actually say where it was taken with the caption for this image.
Yeah. The Red Sea desert doesn't, and so there's not a lot of leaves around.
Many leaves, no.
Yeah. So first of all, it's a very striking image, and I can see why it's done well. I think also pictures like this at the moment tend to get a strong emotional reaction from all of us who are denied our chance to be in the water. What I like about it though is it's got a nice original feel to it because of the way it's shot. It's shot, or it may be cropped quite a bit, but it's shot with quite a tight view and an unusually shallow depth of field. Yep. Normally, we shoot dolphins with wide angle lenses, and maybe this was a chance encounter. And as a result, we shoot wide angle lenses that have lots of depth of field. So we tend to have the dolphins in focus and the seabed behind them in focus. And I like this picture because it's got a very shallow depth of field. The face of the dolphin is sharp and the background is not sharp. It's almost like it's shot with a macro lens.
It was shot with a 50mm.
Oh, okay.
Which actually,
okay, so it's probably not cropped much at all then.
No, it was shot. Interestingly, it was shot with a Canon R5, so the new mirrorless camera in an Icolite housing, with the Sigma 50mm. So possibly highlighting some of the issues around lens choices with mirrorless cameras.
Mm.
But certainly in this case, I think it's worked really well. It's
Yeah.
it's a quite a different image and one that certainly stands out from the crowd.
I think it's white balanced really well because it's not got any
Yeah.
flash on it. It's just an available light shot, which is how you'd normally shoot dolphins. But it's lovely and sharp. It must have been
Mm,
shot with a really fast shutter speed,
mm,
so really crisp on the dolphin. Lovely color come out. I know dolphins don't have color, but it's just a beautiful neutral color on the dolphin, and then a
mm,
nice watercolor behind. I really like the shallow depth of field. It reminds me when we did the UPY review of SJ's photo in
mm,
there, which was also a shallow depth of field picture, which I think gives it a fresh feel, which I really like about this. And then it's made really because it's got that extra bit of behavior. I think
mm,
without the leaf, you'd be like, well, the nose of the dolphin is on the fin and you can't really see it. There's a lot of clutter in the shape
mm,
where all the interesting features are overlaid on each other. And the
mm,
eye contact is nice, but it's not amazing. But the
mm.
leaf and the behavior, I think, really elevates it. And there's a lovely energy to that turn. It catches a really great moment. So yeah, it's really nice.
I think it'd be really nice if Sam watches this, if he wouldn't mind, let us know where it was shot. It's fascinating me
I
actually
mean,
now
I
you
would
mentioned it.
presume it Fury Shoal, just because if it's in Egypt, I mean, it
We
just
don't know.
looks like. Oh, it doesn't say. It
We
just
don't know it's
looks
in Egypt,
like
so
the Red
yeah,
Sea, that background, that
it
white
does.
sand
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the patch reefs,
yeah, yeah,
and you get the spinners in there, you get the Indian Ocean spinners in
yeah,
there. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, it's lovely. So the fourth most popular image is a very creative image by Sam Glenn Smith, and this is of a southern blue-ringed octopus, and it's an in-camera. With the sunset, it's an
Mm,
in-camera double exposure.
mm,
It was shot at Victoria in Australia, and Sam mentions that there's been lots of blue ring action at this time of year, which makes me very jealous because it means he's been under work visiting it. And it says that the action made him excited to revisit some old
mm,
techniques, and in-camera double exposure was one of them.
mm.
And it was shot with a micro four thirds camera with a 12 to 40 lens, in an isotta housing with two CNC strobes and a snoot. Yeah, which actually explains the
Mm.
exposure on the
And I
blue
guess
ring.
the top
Yeah,
side is shot with something a little bit wider.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, but it's no. I think it works very well for a double exposure, and I don't have huge experience of diving in Victoria, but when I've seen this species of blue ring there, it was always at night.
Mm,
So diving in Port Phillip Bay or whatever it's called, in there, and so I think the picture tells that story really well of this beastie coming out at night,
yep.
and I think the double exposure is a fun way to add a lot of interest to the frame. What I
Yep.
like about the double exposure is I like how the colors of the sunset work very well with the colors of the octopus.
Yep.
And so not only are they extending the story about how these blue rings tend to come out at night there,
Yep.
but also I think the colors of the frame work very well. It's a nice subtle above water section. They haven't gone like mega dramatic with
Yep.
it's just nice and subtle. And I think that adds to the realism of the shot, and it
Yep.
worked really well. The feature that I like most of this frame though is that lovely shadow on the seabed.
I was about to say
Super
shadow.
strobe top light on the
Yeah,
subject.
yeah.
I guess with some sort of beam restrictor or a snoot,
So
it's
it's
created this lovely, spotlight on the seabed. And I think it looks really, really nice. And the octopuses there, they do tend to swim a bit more. It's a different species of blue ring to the ones that more people are familiar with seeing in Indonesia, which tend to stay, very much crawling on the bottom. And the
mm,
blue rings there do tend to pop up a bit more off the seabed,
mm.
in that part of the world. They're much bigger as well. They're kind of, I can't remember. I would say hand sized as opposed to, a lot of the blue rings in Asia, this sort of size. These are
Yeah,
kind of hand sized octopus. They're
yeah,
quite a bit bigger.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think that the way that obviously that using the snoot to create the shadow, and then using the double exposures work really well because the actual the shadow lines up so beautifully with the direction of the sunset. So
mm,
it's very cleverly shot, beautifully shot.
mm.
The pose on the octopus I think as well is fantastic. I mean obviously it's moving quite quickly, it's moving across the seabed, but that curl and the tentacles,
You can see
lovely.
it's
Yeah,
moving forward, can't you? As
yeah, yeah,
opposed
you
to
can,
running
yeah.
away. It's on the go. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mm,
No, very lovely. And our third, the third image is an image of a fairly commonly shot scene, which is the Lyra Caves in the Solomon Islands. It's shot by Pavlos Evangelidis. Um,
Mm.
and he says that Lyra Caves in Solomon Islands is one of his favourite dive sites. It's a cavern that goes under the island for about 100 meters at a depth of up to 23 meters. It really comes alive when the sun is out and the rays break through the cracks, but photographing here can be challenging because of the extreme highlights and the deep shadows. And I think he's done a great job of controlling those extreme highlights and deep shadows. Actually,
Mm.
he absolutely, the contrast here, massive contrast in the scene, and yet, he's got great detail in the shadows, and the highlights aren't blown. So he's actually done a very good job of actually managing to cope with those two problems. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I think it's a bit. I would say it's not a commonly photographed place. It's
yeah,
photographed by everyone who goes to the Solomons, but not so many people are going to the Solomons shooting. And yeah, I mean, I've obviously seen plenty of photos of it, which is what you say. I think it's a very dramatic location, and I would say that Pavlos has done a really, really good job of shooting it correctly. The key when shooting in caves like this is to stay in the dark and shoot the beams and hide anything from the camera that is brighter than the beams. Then you
yeah,
can expose for the beams and get the beams to look really good. And he's
yeah,
done all of that really, really well without having to go crazy on the settings. Because often what you see with shots like this is they look nice and then the corners just go super smudged because the person has opened up the aperture so much to get enough light in. And I think what's nice is that it doesn't have a look of soft corners. The composition is really strong. The only critique I've got for it really is I think it's very well shot. I like the color balance. I like everything. Is that I have no feeling for scale, and that cut could be 6 feet deep. And he says it drops down to 20 meters or something in places. That
yeah,
looks like somewhere where if and I think if it is as big as he says, it would look fantastic with a diver in there, because I think it would make it look more spectacular because it's actually a lot bigger than you think it is. To
yeah,
me, this, maybe because I'm used to sort of, some of the shallow cuts on the Red Sea reefs that look exactly like this, but are actually, just the height of a person.
yeah,
And this
yeah,
is, I guess, so I would say the addition of a diver, although, it's nice not to have a diver in it, in this scene, it needs that scale. In the same way that in Silfra, in Iceland,
yeah,
when you shoot it without people in, you have,
yeah,
it might just be a shallow little river running through between some rocks. And
yeah.
I think you need the diver. And it's just it gives a focal point, but it gives a sense of scale and actually makes the scenery more spectacular as a result. But it's very well shot. I don't have any other comment.
I think actually the other thing that's quite clever in terms of the technique is, there is quite a lot of this. Obviously the sides of the crack are quite green by the look of it, and I like the fact that you've got that color coming through. You often see this as a black and white image, and there's lots of reasons for converting it to mono, but I actually really like the color in it.
Mm.
I think
Yeah, me too.
it's really nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And um, so the second the image that was picked as the second by Facebook's algorithm is another picture of a blue ring octopus, shot again by Sam Glenn Smith. He's called it Liftoff, and this is a
You had to be
picture.
called Sam this month to win.
Yeah, it would seem so. Yeah. Sam gets the name gets popularity. And he describes blue ringed octopus gets ready to launch itself in the water column, curling its arms before using its siphon to jet off. He said that he'd been waiting to get a photo of blue ring in this position for a while, was finally able to pull it off. Again, it was shot in Victoria, in Australia. It was shot Micro Four Thirds, Olympus Micro Four Thirds with a 12 to 40, in an isotope housing with two CNC strobes. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously I think you mentioned earlier, Alex, that these are typically shot at night. So getting the black background was a bit of a no-brainer. That's certainly what you need to do. And obviously managing to get this in the water column is the challenge. Interestingly, I think that the other Sam's previous image where he showed the blue ring moving across the bottom shows how he's managed to get this one as well. By getting low enough and pointing the camera up enough, you can get them in this pose.
Yeah, and I think that's, you don't need a subject a long way off the seabed to isolate them, as long as the camera's lower than them. You can be, his previous picture showed that actually if he'd had his camera on the seabed, he would have also been able to isolate that against open water.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And yes, and having dive with this species of blue ring, it does move more off the bottom than a typical blue ring does, than the blue ring that more divers are used to seeing in Asia. So yeah, I don't have a big issue with this one. I have to say that talking about that issue is that I would say say we were judging a competition, I would probably say something along the lines to you is that I think this picture was taken naturally. However, if we award this picture, it might encourage people to say, well, if I want to win a competition, I need to take a picture of an octopus in the water column. And as a result, a picture that was taken naturally could actually generate some bad behavior from people trying to emulate that type of shot, thinking that's what's needed. So in competition terms, I would probably say I accept that this picture's taken completely naturally. I like the picture. I like particularly that the shape of the whole octopus in this particular frame. But I don't want to reward it because I think it would spawn copycat shots which maybe weren't taken naturally. I think that's probably where I would be on a picture like this.
I completely agree with you, Alex. And I think that we need to be a little bit wary when we're viewing images on social media, that we don't create an acceptance of. I mean, this is an image of that's very difficult to capture, of a fairly exceptional moment, and in fact, Sam highlights that in his description. But unfortunately, when people now look at that, I think, well, that's what blue ring octopuses do, and therefore it becomes a general sort of broad acceptance that this is a common behaviour, which would be wrong or a common technique that we can use to shoot them, and that encourages people to potentially to behave in ways that aren't ethical. So I love the
image. But
at
the same time, I think it's also important that extraordinary events and behaviours are captured by photographers, and it's a very difficult balance.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And in terms of the shot, I think he's controlled. Sam's controlled the lighting really well on it. The fall off of the light, even through the body and the tentacles of the octopus itself, is really, really nicely done. Really, really nicely controlled.
So what was our number one from the month?
Our number one is this pictures of a pinnate Pinatus Batfish, shot by Jerome Kim in Anilao in the Philippines.
Didn't Jerome come top last month as well?
He did, yeah. Someone's got to knock him off his pedestal.
Yeah.
Beautifully shot. Shot in 2018. It's obviously not a new image like the rest of us. I suspect Jerome's not managed to be underwater as much as he liked this year. Yeah.
I think this is a subject that I think is very well suited to photography, and when these young batfish turn up with this color match pattern, I think they are very photogenic. And as a result, that the pictures tend to do really well. It's a more classic way to shoot them is to shoot them with a snoot and light them and not the surroundings, so that you get basically this almost, I always call them, it's a very British analogy, but I always call them ready break batfish. There was an advert when Adam and I were kids, or at least when I was a kid, on the TV in the UK about the kids would have to eat ready break, which was like a type of porridge or oatmeal ready made. And it would basically warm the kids up for their walk to school. So they would show the kids in the advert with this kind of orange glow around the outside of them, like they'd been too close to some nuclear facility.
When I was a kid, it's on their walk to the mill.
Yeah. Yeah. Should we do the rest of this in a Yorkshire accent?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back to Jerome's picture. Sorry. And normally we tend to go for them sideways on against a black background, and that's kind of the classic image. And I'm drawn to this one because it's a nice variation from that still works. And it's all made because of the symmetry. It's why the picture is strong. It's not just that he's got the fish head on, but he's also got those two pectoral fins going out, very symmetrical in the picture. That gives this very strong shape running right down and out through the picture. That works really well. What I don't like about it is I find that the lighting on the subject is not symmetrical. And I don't like when a photographer shoots something to highlight the symmetry and then doesn't light it symmetrically. And the light on as I look at it, the left side of the fish is much brighter than the light on the right side. And it's probably because the strobes weren't placed symmetrically around. And I realised that with a subject like this, you might be trying lots of several things. What I do like very much is I think the depth of field is very well handled.
Useful.
And as a result, the background is nice and out of focus.
Yeah.
I would have probably taken a little bit of saturation out of that background. Not make it black and white, it's just a bit too punchy relative to the subject.
Yeah.
But the focus is excellent, the symmetry is excellent, the originality with a subject that is so often photographed the same way is really great. And I think you really see the subject, which actually, often the classic way of shooting it, is actually quite hard to get the subject. And I really get the subject in this shot, so I really like it. I was just,
and I think you've got really good eye contact too, which you never get with the classical way of shooting these. There is quite an engaging picture, but again, what you mentioned, Alex, the fact that we've got a slightly darker side and a lighter side means the eye contact is really good. There is good eye contact. It would have been even better if there was a bit more background lit up on the darker side, I think. Yeah, but I think that the shallow depth field works really well. I like it. And these sort of fringing elements, these fringing colours that these fish have that are so often the target, that we've still got them and portrayed in a particularly beautiful way. Yeah, I really like it. So yeah, lovely. So I guess that kind of obviously that's the top 5 for February. We'll keep doing this, or we'll do one at the end of March. They're all wonderful images, so and in common with all the images on the Wetpixel Facebook group. So please keep on sharing them. I certainly enjoy seeing them, but certainly, it would suggest that it's a busy, active group, and people obviously like looking at them on there. So it's great. So thank you very much for your insights, Alex. Alex. Well, we should probably mention, Alex, if you go onto Facebook, Alex does post on Facebook, but actually better on Instagram, isn't it?
Yeah, but actually my Instagram page posts to my Alex Mustard Underwater Photography Facebook page as well.
There you go.
So some people know that one, yeah.
Another good place to go for inspiration. So if you search for Alex Mustard Underwater Photography on Facebook, you'll find it there too. So thank you very much, Alex. Bear with me while I get to there we are. So I'd like to thank CCAM again for sponsoring this episode. We couldn't do it without support of our sponsors, so thanks very much to them. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and please feel free to drop any comments about the images that you've seen here in the comment section. Drop us a like if you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again soon.